Good morning, Milwaukee and surrounding areas. This is the inaugural edition of the Speak Your Peace Domestic Violence Talk Show. Now, this show is hosted by Jodine, a 12-year survivor who offers educational and inspirational talk with a purpose that examines and explores issues relating to domestic violence. Milwaukee and surrounding areas, it is my distinct pleasure as the co-owner of this radio station to bring to you Miss Jodine Bastarash, good friend of mine, my sister. What's happening with you this morning?
Amari, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction.
Much deserved. And this show is so long overdue. I've had sisters calling me, asking about the show. Here we are. We're finally doing our thing. So yes. I'm going to get out of your way because this ain't my show. It's your show, and I'm going to let you do your thing.
All right. Well, welcome to the Speak Your Peace Domestic Violence Radio Talk Show, an educational and inspirational talk show with a purpose where you have a voice that needs to be heard. As Amari mentioned, I'm your host, Jodine Bastarash, and the focus of Speak Your Peace is to examine and explore the issues relating to domestic violence. We want to help the community better understand the effects and how to heal from this traumatic experience. And I just love our intro theme song that was just played with India.Arie, where it says, because you never know where life is going to take you. And you can't change where you've been, but today I have the opportunity to choose. And another line says, I was always too concerned about what everybody would think. But I can't live for everybody. I got to live my life for me. Being a 12-year survivor myself, I can relate to these lyrics because they're true. We don't know what our lives is going to consist of, the path we're going to journey down, or why we walk the course that we do. But we tend to live for everybody else versus making decisions on what's best for us. We stay in an abusive relationship or an unhealthy relationship for all the wrong reasons. And it always seems to be reasons with choices that include others, whether negative or positive. But it comes to that breaking point where we have to choose. We have to choose our right path. We have to choose our destiny. And we have to choose our happiness and success. But it's a matter of choice. But unfortunately, that doesn't come easy for everyone. And honestly, it took me 12 years to come to that point. It took a long time and, many near-death experiences to cross that bridge. But it got to the point where I did reach the fork in the road of my life where it was either life or death. And so as the song says, ain't nothing gonna happen unless I decide. Well, today we're going to share with you a guest that we have in the studio. We have Miss Antonia Drew-Van from Show-Asha Family Services, and we're going to be discussing physical abuse and domestic violence. There are actually three main forms of domestic violence, which is physical, emotional, sexual, and economic. And the state of Wisconsin's definition of domestic abuse includes the intentional infliction of or threat to inflict physical pain, physical injury, illness, impairment of physical condition, sexual assault, or sexual intercourse without consent. But before we get into that, we're going to do a little dialogue in this morning with Ms. Van. Antonia Drew-Van is a nationally certified domestic violence counselor and chief executive officer and founder of Show-Asha Family Services. It was established in 1989, and Show-Asha is a comprehensive domestic and sexual violence intervention and prevention agency located right here in the city of Milwaukee. Show-Asha was the first and only recognized culturally specific domestic violence prevention agency in the state for African Americans. Show-Asha operates several entities, such as the Sisters Coffee Shop and Deli. She has micro enterprises both where they're job training and job development sites for program participants to enhance employable skills and create jobs and so on and so forth. She just has a wealth of knowledge and history coming behind her, and I'm just so excited to have her in the studio, so I can't wait to get going. Welcome.
Good morning, Jodine and Amari. Thank you. I am just really happy to be here. I'm excited about having this conversation. I am always anxious to even engage in these conversations because they're so difficult to have, and many people do not want to have these conversations, and for a variety of reasons.
Yes.
So I'm just happy to be here.
Thank you for coming this morning. Now, I was reading a lot about the variety of things that you guys do on your website. And ASHA not only houses the Office for Domestic Violence Services, but a few other entities. Would you mind sharing with us what all you do there?
Yes, we're pretty comprehensive. We have certainly the basic services of domestic violence, crisis intervention, counseling, individual counseling, group counseling through our sister circles that meet every Thursday since our inception, as a matter of fact, every Thursday at 5:30. And they meet in Sisters Cafe. Now, Sisters Cafe is a micro-enterprise. It's a job training site for survivors and for particularly those that may be transitioning from correctional facilities back into the community, and it helps them have a job, build job skills, job experience in the workforce.
Now,
to better equip them.
Do you have to be currently receiving services from ASHA in order to participate? So, for example, like the ASHA, the sister circles, anyone can join in? Okay.
No, absolutely not. We have a number of people. Because we are so known in the community, we can have 2 or 3 walk-ins on any given day. For a variety of things, including domestic violence victimization. We're in a business district that is very familiar with us, and as a matter of fact, they made changes to the building structure just to be able to house us, such as using the bid district used their monies to install new lighting outside of our building. They changed the face of it, put on a new facade, these kinds of things. So because of domestic violence prevalence within the business community, within our homes, and how it does impact the business communities, they really wanted us there.
Okay. I believe we have a caller on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on the line. Go ahead and speak your piece.
Good morning, Brother Student.
Is he still there? Nope. I think we lost the call. Okay. All right. So now, are you a survivor yourself, or do you just have a heart for battered women?
Oh, both. I am a survivor. I am a survivor, and as a survivor, there were no resources out there that I felt were of use for me, being an African American woman, even though I knew that there were some very good services that were available. I personally, as an African American woman, did not want to use those services.
Okay.
And then I learned from talking to other women that there were so many women just like me.
Wow.
And so, looking at a different model, the reality is that one size does not fit all. Mm-hmm. And there has to be other options. And that doesn't speak negatively of any other service that's out there. It just means that there has to be a variety of things. And I found I was certainly not alone. And so that's how we began. We crafted and designed our own services by and for us, particularly African American women. And then we branched off and expanded to include batterers treatment services, children's services. We were doing work with victims in prisons, pregnant women in jails, and on and on and on. So it began to really expand, and it did the same across the country.
Okay, so then now, did you, was it where, as you were expanding, opportunities were presenting themselves, or you were seeing like gaps or where there was a need, like as you mentioned, the prisons, because you guys do prison work as well, correct?
Oh yeah, we do, and there were some major gaps in the services, and so we tried to be able to fill them where we could. One was becoming the state's first culturally specific, well actually the only, and we shouldn't be, the only African American culturally specific domestic violence organization. And we were written into state legislation in the early 90s, I believe about 1992.
Wow.
That we went into the legislation. Because what we were saying here in Wisconsin was the same things being said in urban areas across the country, such as Detroit, such as Minnesota, and other places. The federal funders and the legislators in states and in Washington were getting all of this feedback that, hey, there has to be another option or other options for people who do not want to use traditional services.
Okay. Well, we have a caller that's back on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on the line. Speak your piece.
Hi, good morning.
Hello.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning, caller. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing fine. My name is Greg Stallworth. I'm from the We Must Stop. I'm the founder of We Must Stop Now tour from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Wow, awesome. Welcome, Cincinnati.
Well, thank you. I want to
Good morning,
get
Greg.
online and listen to your conversation, and I'm very proud of what you're doing, expanding awareness to us out here in the community. So I just want to say hello, and I'll be listening in and hopefully chiming in.
Wow, awesome. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, talk to you soon. All right. Well, we're going to go on ahead and take a quick commercial break and come back and get some more good meat from Miss Antonia. I just get excited when I speak with her because she is just such a wealth of knowledge. I'm just like a little kid in a candy store, just absorbing it all.
Thank you.
Let it go today. I was always too concerned.
Welcome back to the Speak Your Peace radio talk show on domestic violence. This morning we are sharing with Miss Antonia Van from Show-Asha Family Services. And, I guess the next question that I'd like to ask you, Miss Antonia, is that you were able to tap into the victim services with the district attorney's office. How did that come about?
First organizations that were here in the state, and we were doing domestic violence restraining orders in the courthouse. And we were seeing 1,700 women a month.
Wow.
Doing domestic violence restraining orders. But at the same time, we were receiving calls from the district attorney's office about particular cases. And so it became real clear that these were two totally different populations. And so one afternoon, when I do work in the prisons, that includes the former DA, E. Michael McCann.
Okay.
And so I had developed a relationship with him. And at one point, I talked to him about those cases. And I asked him, could we have an office in the DA's office and have advocates there to address the needs of victims being seen in the DA's office, because these were two separate populations. And he said yes. And
Awesome.
From that point, and told me to come on down, showed me the office. It's like, okay, now what am I going to do with this? So
Yeah.
I contacted the other DV directors and told them, I asked McCann, he just said yes. I didn't expect him to do that. And then I went to United Way, talked to United Way about it. United Way held a meeting with all of us, and we agreed to put an advocate in. And we were there for about 10 years. But our work took us more into the streets. So after 10 years, we left the DA's office, and the other programs continued to have advocates there.
Now you do something with the police department as well.
Right. We had the first crisis intervention team, and it was a vision quite some time ago. What we were trying to do was to be able to assist the DA in prosecuting domestic violence cases as if they were homicides.
Okay.
And not necessarily rely on a victim's participation in the prosecution of her man, the father of her child. And there's a whole complex set of issues that come with that, including her increased level of safety.
Yes.
With that. And so this was under Chief Areola when I came up with this bright idea. And Areola, who was strong on community-oriented policing, said yes. So he had his division that does their grants. We wrote the grant together, and it was funded. And it was extremely successful. And then after that, the federal government that was funding this project called all the players to a meeting, and this was different programs from across the country, and those funds were cut. But fortunately for us, the state was so impressed with the project, they said that they would pick up the resources for it. But subsequently, there was a new police chief, and that chief did not want to participate in the project. So it kind of fell off at that point.
Why do you think he didn't want to participate with it?
Sometimes I have learned with some police believe in community-oriented policing, and some do not.
Okay.
And when you have police that are very involved, you will see them in the community. You will see them partnering with programs in the community. You will see them extending services and opportunities. And where we're at now is we've got an awesome captain at one of the district stations, and another captain at a district station that is near us. And the one that's located with us, actually, Captain Regina Howard, she is on fire about the issue of domestic violence, and she is tired of her department having to investigate these cases, and homicides have occurred, or women and children are being maimed. So she is really passionate. So we've started again riding along with police to domestic violence situations that have occurred, and we usually respond within 24 to 48 hours after an incident to offer immediate services and assistance. We can prepare restraining orders right there in victims' homes. We can assess them for a number of different things, their needs. You've been so awesome in helping us with some serious cases that we've had recently. And as you know, that they are life-threatening situations that are currently going on. And even just with those families, we have 4 victims, primary adult victims, and 10 children. And the thing of it is that with this, we've seen a spike naturally in the number of victims seeking services, just because of this exposure, and just because you have a police department that is so bent on addressing this issue and getting services to victims as quickly as possible.
Now, I've noticed just with myself, I've been out of my domestic violence marriage for quite a few years now. But out of the 12 years that I did go through it, and recently, unfortunately, one of my daughters was affected with it. Now, I noticed with the gap, things still seem to be the same as far as the police department and victims, meaning that, for one, when I was going through it, I think I probably called the cops myself maybe 2 or 3 times out of the 12 years. A few times neighbors called. And when the cops came, they didn't do anything. When I was going through domestic violence, I didn't realize I was going through domestic violence. I didn't know I was in an unhealthy relationship. I didn't have a 2-parent home. I didn't have a father showing me how a man is supposed to, treat you. I didn't grow up seeing my mom be victimized at all. I just didn't see it. I didn't hear of it. Mm-hmm. So when I was going through it, I looked at it as, okay, we just had a fight. Okay, we just had a fight. Mm-hmm. And when I did get scared enough, or when the cops were called, it was like they came, they gave you a pink slip to get a restraining order, and they left. But they not once explained or expressed and said, you're in an abusive relationship, you're in this, you're in that. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the police officers would try to counsel us, and it's like, okay, take him. I mean, look at me. Do you see how I'm looking? And it's like we look to the authorities because we're scared. As victims, we're scared because we know if the authorities get involved, once they leave, your licking is going to be worse than before they came.
Right,
so we're afraid to get the authorities involved, and then even our family members or friends or witnesses, they'll hear or see, and oftentimes they're afraid to get involved also, whether it's because the retaliation on them, or some people have the mindset, well, why get involved, and she's just going to stay with them anyways.
Right.
Exactly, your business. But I guess for me, from the victim side of things, I used to always wish and pray after a certain time that somebody would get involved, because it's not me that's calling the authorities on them, it's someone else. And even though my licking is going to be worse once they leave, but at least he can't blame it on me to a certain extent, because sometimes they'll say, oh, if you would have kept your mouth shut, if you would have been screaming, nobody would have heard you, all of that.
Stuff.
But we look to the authorities and say, okay, you're trained, you go to these homes, you take these type of calls, even though I may be telling you, lying to your face, no, nothing happened, I just fell down the stairs, or I bumped my eye on the cabinet, or whatever my excuse may be. You're trained to know what's real and what's not real. But and we look for the cops to take them, to save us, and they don't. And then even with so then we come to the mindset of, well, why get the authorities involved? They're not going to do anything anyway. And then we come to with what I experienced with my daughter recently. I'm thinking, okay, years have gone by, things have changed. As of last October, I just reached my 1-year anniversary, and actually stepping out and getting the courage and just having the passion to help, bring awareness, because I think back to when I was going through it. I didn't hear about domestic violence in the streets. I didn't see or hear PSAs. You didn't hear about it in school. I didn't hear about it at all. So because it was like that when I went through it, that's why I'm so passionate now, because I'm like, if there was more awareness out here for those that are in a domestic violence situation that may be like I was, and not realize, honey, you're in an unhealthy relationship, whether it's physical abuse, whether it's verbal abuse, whatever the means may be. But I've just noticed that things really haven't changed at all, because when my daughter had her situation, the gentleman did not physically injure her at first, but she was afraid for her life, where she actually ran out of the apartment and ran 15 blocks away. But the guy, was harassing her, threatened her, took her phone and everything. I took her to get a restraining order. They told her that she could not have a restraining order, that she had to get a harassment order. And I'm like, wow, are you serious? And I couldn't even go in the courtroom with her. I had to sit, and I couldn't even sit in the waiting area with her. I had to sit out in the hallway. And so I'm like, well, what was said? I'm asking, well, what was discussed? What did you tell him? I told him what he did. I told him what he said. I said, and they wouldn't. I said, did you tell him that you were afraid? She said, yeah. And I said, they still will not give you one? She said, no. They told me I had to pay such and such amount of dollars and get a harassment order. I said, wow. A month later, actually the opening night of me doing my domestic violence event, I received a text and a phone call that she had been assaulted, that this guy got up into her apartment building, kicked down her door. She had a concussion, she had bruises and a broken finger. That was on a Friday night. That Monday, she took the initiative to get up to go and get a restraining order. But when the cops came, they still didn't do anything. They didn't take pictures of her. They didn't offer her or take pictures of the door. They didn't offer, do you need medical attention? They didn't do anything. And when I found out about it, I said, no. We called them back the next day, and then they came over to my house and then took pictures and did everything. And they went and gave him 3 tickets for battery theft and vandalism or something like that. But it just still leads me to that mindset and that frustration of things really haven't changed. Why we shouldn't have had to call them back the second time.
No, you shouldn't.
To step in.
And the reality is that it also depends on where it happens.
Okay.
It also depends on the officers that respond. It also depends on, because we've had to take people from one district to another district. And to districts where we know where this issue is taken real seriously, where the victim is provided with an advocate, with assistance. The reality is that training, we oftentimes think that training, I'm not sure what the extent of the level of training is, particularly on the issue of domestic violence, among police officers, sometimes you can have a rookie that's paired with a seasoned officer that might not have the same value or take the same consideration around domestic violence. And so he or she may very well go with what that senior officer says. But the reality is that you've got police officers that we are working with, and we couldn't have done half the things we did for victims had these police officers not been in the picture, so to speak. So you talked about a number of things with the issues. Also with the whole fact about restraining orders. Restraining orders are important for a number of factors, and we can talk about that, some of those in detail, because I strongly encourage women to get, or victims, women or men, because domestic violence doesn't care who you are.
That's right.
And it doesn't care who you love.
Yep.
So you need to look at and weigh the issues, because there's another side to that that needs to also be considered.
Okay.
And that has to do with domestic violence homicides.
Okay. Oh, great. I can't wait to hear that. Right now, we're going to take another commercial break. In the meantime, feel free, if you have any questions, if you have any feedback, if you'd like to share any experiences, please call in. Our call-in number is 414-751-4030. Or also feel free to chat with us on Facebook. We have the Facebook group page going on right now. You can post there as well, and that's Speak Your Peace Domestic Violence Radio Talk Show. We'll be back. Welcome back to the Speak Your Peace Radio Talk Show this morning on domestic violence. And I just want to encourage, if we have any listeners out there that may find themselves going through a domestic violence and abusive relationship, whether it's physical, whether it's emotional, sexual, economic, whatever form of an unhealthy relationship that you find yourself in right now, I just wanted to encourage you and let you know that you are not alone.
That's right.
And that this is not the end of your story.
That's right.
There's still an opportunity for you to take that chance to get out of that relationship. But most importantly, I never ever want to encourage anyone to just leave. We want to encourage you to take the proper steps to leave that relationship, because when you leave an abusive relationship, statistics show that those are the highest times of the security for your life, basically. So they do have what's called a safety plan. You can feel free to call some of the domestic violence agencies, Show-Asha Family Services, Sojourner Family Peace Center. There's a national domestic violence hotline, and that number is 1-800-799-7233, which is 1-800-799-SAFE. So please call the hotline, get help. If you have access to an internet, get on the internet, find out about the safety plan. Most of the domestic violence websites have what's called a safety button or a panic button. Yes. And that basically means that, if your abuser is in the home, whether it's he or she, because men are victims as well, domestic violence is not prejudice. It happens to anyone, to everyone. Doesn't matter your color, doesn't matter your socioeconomic status. It doesn't matter. So if you need to get on the internet, if you find yourself or say, I really want to, look up the warning signs, am I in a domestic violence relationship? I'm really not sure. Listening to our show, hopefully you'll continue to tune in, because we're going to continue to tap into the warning signs. We're going to continue to tap in to help you to get out of that relationship. But just remember, if you do go online, to make sure the very first thing you do is look for that panic button, so that if you do hear someone come in the room or what have you, when you click on that button, it will immediately take you away from that site. But I also highly encourage you to do that away from your home. Do that away from the abuser. Don't take a chance. Don't take that chance, whether it's going to the library or going to a friend's house. just, be cautious, be careful. But I just really wanted to just let you know that you're not alone. There's many of us out here that are going through the similar story of what you're encountering right now, and you still have an opportunity to leave. The beginning is always the hardest, but trust me, it does get easier. It's one step at a time, and there are resources and services out here that can help you. So just, and Miss Antonia, to get back to what we were talking about before, I think this is actually probably a perfect lead-in in reference to the restraining orders. I myself am not too strong of a believer with restraining orders. Thankfully, my daughter was able to get her restraining order yesterday when she went to court. The first time she went, the gentleman had not been served yet, so they gave another 2-week extension, and now he's been served. But I guess just looking at the lack of protection that we as victims feel that we have, it's like, okay, well, if the cops aren't really there to help me from the beginning, what makes me think, okay, just having this piece of paper, restraining order, is going to help any? Because by the time he comes to my home and I call the cops and say I got a restraining order, he could have killed me. He could have done some damage. So can you help us and help me? I'm not ashamed to be transparent here.
Well, the issue is that piece of paper, that document, what it does is it provides the laws and the consequences that are able to equip police officer to do something. So if you have this restraining order in place, depending on the police officer, I guess, in some instances, but for the vast majority of them, they do respond pretty well, and they do take it seriously. There are some, and then some districts that we've had some problems with. But the model that's being run in District 7, for example, in District 4, we've had amazing responses from police officers in those districts. I'm not sure about the other ones, but those two are really serious. But what it does is it says, and that's an empowering kind of thing for women to do, is to be able to take some steps to hold this individual accountable. And once that paperwork is filed, that creates a paper trail. And we've got Miss Betty that works with at Show-Asha Family Services, and Betty didn't have that paper trail. Betty didn't tell anyone.
Yes.
Just like you said, you didn't. The majority of cases go unreported. So if we're talking about these 2,000 reported cases, there's probably actually 10,000 cases.
Sure.
And just the 2,000 are reported. And in her instance, for example, hers and a number of other women, they don't take the step to create that paper trail. And in an instant, Betty had to kill her abuser.
Wow.
Because he was trying to kill her.
Okay. So it was did they look at it as self-defense?
No, there is no self-defense in these instances, and there is no laws around battered women syndrome. These things are not recognized in Wisconsin. And in Betty's case and a number of other women's cases, those women were not able to build a defense around a history of victimization. So her history of victimization was not admissible.
Okay.
And so had that paper trail been present, it would have helped her. But instead, Betty served 22 years.
Wow.
On a life sentence. She's among a number of women that are incarcerated currently right now for being forced to kill their abusive partners. And in this instance, as Betty's, as it is with many of other women, their intent is not to kill this person.
Yeah.
It just so happens that in the instance of the situation, the other person was injured, and subsequently, or at that particular time, immediately died. So then those are murder charges. Again, because there was no history of paperwork. But if there is a domestic violence situation, now there are processes in place. For example, if there are reports for a particular individual, well, they're tracking, are able to track this individual. Because you've got some of these individuals that are beating on women in particular, these individuals are beating on other women. So for many of these guys, they have multiple partners, and they're beating on multiple women, or they go from woman to woman, and they have this level of physical violence as well as emotional violence, and psychological abuse and sexual abuse, which is also another issue that isn't discussed in partner violence or in marital relationships. But sexual assaults and rapes are prevalent within that population. And so to go back to the whole restraining order issue, it is just so important for women to assist in getting something written down, something documented somewhere, because you have no idea what will happen. We've got another woman whose brother wound up killing her abuser. Well, there was no mitigating circumstances or anything to be considered, because although she had a 5-year history of being violently abused by this individual, there was nothing written. So there was no TRO, there was no paperwork, nothing anywhere that said, so they couldn't even use that information.
But now, Miss Antonia, you know, that brings me back to the Brookfield incident. Because when I was, I stayed pretty in tune with that story, and I got really upset, because as I was reading all the stories out there, and the more I learned about her particular situation, there were numerous times where she tried to get help. Now, you know, granted, I read in one article where it said, for the police officer, you know, they said it's hard for us to do anything when the victim recants her statements. But then when it got to the point where she stopped recanting, and when she was trying to reach out for that help, it seemed as if, I mean, there was one article I read where there was a standoff at her house, and the guy had her in the house. Why does that? I mean, there's no reason why she should have died. There's no reason why he should not have been arrested, and something should have been done about that situation. It just seems as if it was just looked over, like they didn't take him seriously or the situation seriously. Even the time when she was at the gas station on 51st and Brown Deer, you know, and she called for help, and they came, and then when they finally got there, then she lied and said, oh, she was trying to call information or the phone company or some sorts. But in looking at her, the cop mentioned and even said something about the way she looked, because her response was blaming it on her makeup or whatever the case may be. But why do you feel that in that particular situation that it was looked over? Because again, it gives us as victims, remember, I'm a survivor, but my heart is so passionate in this. When I hear of other people's stories, it's like I feel like it's me. My heart just goes out to them, and it's like I tend to kind of take their story and carry it on. Yes, yeah. I can relate. I carry it.
Feel their pain.
Yes.
And there were a number of instances. Now, I believe that if there's a standoff, that somebody's going to jail.
Yeah.
And so that was the whole piece for me. Now, had there been an arrest and subsequent incarceration, you know, there would have been a time period where he would not have been able to get to her. He would have been locked up.
Sure.
Now, that depends on where that would have taken that situation. But the thing of it is, and the reality is that you have some individuals out here that are so hateful. They are so mean, and they are so intent on killing and destroying this woman's lives. When you see and hear flags that say, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill myself, or I'm going to kill myself if you leave me. I can't live without you.
Yes.
And talking all of these kinds of things, and will do acts and engage in behaviors that for some of us as women, we may think, oh, he just needs a little bit more love, or oh, I can make this better.
Yes.
But those are some serious red flags.
Yes.
And mental health is an issue that we also don't talk about.
So is that why you started the men's batterers services, the programs or support groups?
No, not because of the mental health.
Okay.
We started it because I am a firm believer that until you engage men in this fight, until men are engaged, encouraged, and supported to step to the forefront and engage other men and model for other men and boys to stop violence against women. Until men take leadership in that, it's not going to stop.
Okay.
And I think we as women, we've done some amazing things throughout the field of domestic violence, family violence, sexual assault. We've done some really amazing things. And as women, this is this huge women's movement. But if we could have stopped violence against women in this 25 years, we would have done so. But we can't. We haven't.
Okay.
So until there's an element missing, and that is the male, until he says violence against women and children has to stop, it's not going to stop.
Now, what about, because there are women batterers as well, do they have women batterer support groups also?
Oh, yeah. Those are educational. Any of the groups for perpetrators, those are educational and awareness groups. And some can be pretty intense, because you have some where you have some individuals that are extremely violent.
Okay.
You have domestic violence is a pattern of abusive behaviors. It's not a one-time instance.
The cycle of abuse.
Right.
Can you share that with the listeners?
The cycle of violence usually occurs in this succession of where there might be an escalation, where the situation is rising. And again, you also have to remember that a domestic violence incident can span hours.
Yes.
Hours, literally hours. Women are terrorized, they are beaten, they are talked about, they are name-calling, pushing, shoving, kicking, slapping that can span hours. And then that is the incident itself. But during that time, there's other things that are leading up. Intense control, calls and text messaging and making you, why didn't you pick up the phone? Accusing you of doing certain kinds of things or harassing kinds of behaviors.
Keeping you from your family and friends.
This individual will isolate you from your strongest supports. The people who are most supportive of you and who have the most influence on you, he's going to try to isolate you, or she is going to try to isolate you from those individuals, because those are your supports.
Yes.
And so using it with behaviors that can sometimes cement your relationship to the batterer, because you're isolated, so your whole focus is on that individual. So it can this is one of the most complex issues on the planet, because you have this whole societal view of women that is pervasive, and then you have what people think is your business and what is not your business. And what a man does in his household is his business, and that's between him and his woman. That's but ask yourself, and I ask men that we work with, well, what if that was your sister, your daughter? I'll ask the guys, how many of you have daughters?
Yeah.
And most of them are raising their hands. Okay, so the situation we just talked about it was that you beat this woman, you kicked this woman, so then it's okay for her boyfriend to do, your daughter's boyfriend to do that. And it's like, no. So it's okay for it to be your mother or your sister. And so it's like bringing this whole issue around and having them see it in another way. So this is somebody's daughter, regardless of who she is. She's somebody's daughter.
That's right. Exactly. Now, Miss Antonia, in the last few minutes that we have, wow, and this is just starting to get, I won't say just starting, but starting to get really good. Oh, man. We have, 2-3 minutes left here. I wanted to make sure that we discussed your event at the end of the month. You're doing a fundraiser.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, so would you share with the listeners? I'm so excited. It's going to be an awesome show.
It is. And it's the Laugh Out Loud comedy show. And the Laugh Out Loud comedy show, the host is Spitfire. She's so awesome.
Yes.
And what had happened is that during Domestic Violence Awareness Month, I do all my posts on different things on my Facebook wall. And Troy Allen posted, it's like, hey, this is an issue that is really impacting our community, and in recognition of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, there's a group of us that want to do a fundraiser to help raise funds for Asha Family Services. And I was like, oh, wow.
Nice.
And it just kind of went off. And we had the flyer design. We've got one of the officers, as a matter of fact, that we work with. And well, actually, she's downtown. And she got Nostalgia 2 for us at no charge.
Oh, wow, that's
and
awesome.
so it just started coming to place and into place. So then Troy Allen has Marlon Hill, D-Rock, Rob G, and they have promised to put on an amazing show, and it is just so awesome, and it's kind of just taken off. But it's November 30th at Nostalgia 2. The event starts at 9 p.m. Doors open at 8, and I am so...
Where can I get
looking forward.
tickets?
Oh, you can get tickets at Asha Family Services.
Okay.
They can pick tickets up on Thursdays at One Sports Lounge. Oh, I love Mark. At One Sports Lounge on Thursdays, and please order the purple
Purple
martini.
Ruby.
Yes, the purple
Yes.
ruby. And those proceeds go to the show. So that's another place, and they can get them from the office. So
And
at
where's
Asha
your
Family
office?
Services, 3719 West Center Street. They can certainly inbox me on Facebook, and we can make sure they get their tickets. They can contact us through our website at www.ashafamilyservices.org.
And what is your Facebook name?
Antonia Drew Van.
And that's 2 N's, correct?
Yes,
V-A-N-N.
V-A-N-N, yes. And they can also catch me through my blog at antonia-advocate.blogspot.com.
And a
Yes.
phone number.
414-875-1511. And we are so looking forward to this event. And we
Yes.
so appreciate you
Oh,
for
thank
the
you.
things that have occurred around this event. And I have people that are real excited about the tattoo artists
Awesome.
that are donating the gift certificates for the tattoos.
Awesome.
So that was really impressive. So
Yeah, well, for the listeners, it's a comedy show. So if you have not heard D-Rock or Marlon Hill or Spitfire or Troy Allen, I mean, these guys are just phenomenal.
Yes, they are.
Phenomenal. So, I mean, they have an awesome lineup. And during the show, they're going to be doing a silent auction. Now, all of the proceeds from the ticket sales and from the silent auction is going to go to Asha Family Services to help further them with the services that they give to the community.
Yes.
They recently had about 5 families that came that were basically in a life or death situation.
yes, those are
And
serious.
very, very serious, and brought a combined total of 10 children. So at one point there was a need to supply them with clothing and just daily hygiene needs and so forth, and those families are in protection right now. But right now we've had a tremendous amount of support
Yes,
from the
we
community,
have.
so thank you so much for helping them with that. Now they're looking for toy donations because they wanted to make sure that this Christmas, that it's a nice Christmas for them, because unfortunately,
They're displaced.
exactly.
They're displaced.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
the housing, where we've got them located, if it hadn't been for District 7, they helped with the housing
Awesome.
to that extent
Awesome.
of getting these families placed. So it's just
Good.
real critical that we do what we can. And the reality is that doing this work costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it's money that is not budgeted. And we're
Yeah,
one of
and
the smaller
funding's been
agencies.
cut.
Yes, everyone has suffered some serious funding cuts. And we are, being a small agency, you tend to take a larger hit, or what looks like a larger hit. So we have a smaller staff. And so our resources are able to expand to get the toiletries.
Okay.
So toiletries, ongoing toiletries, same things that we use daily: toothbrush, toothpaste, deodorant, lotions, towels. So we try to put together these packets.
Sure.
And so we're always in need of those things, and people can just drop those off at Asha Family Services or donate to the agency online, which is it's through our PayPal, which is right on our website.
Yes, and I bet that's real. Just as the financial contributions are just as important as the actual items, because I know last week, we were getting funds together because some of the families that you're helping right now needed to set up a post office box, needed to get
they needed to open a bank account because one needs to get money's direct deposited. They if these people are in hiding, they cannot do a change of address card.
Exactly.
So the perpetrator is trying to track them, and in that particular instance, this individual is looking for them. He is not in custody in either of those cases, and as you know, 3 were shooting victims, and 2 of those were children.
Yeah, gosh, that was so sad. Okay, well, once again, real quick, it's the Laugh Out Loud comedy show on November 30th at Nostalgia's 2, 9316 West Appleton Avenue. You can pick up your tickets from Asha Family Services at 3719 West Center Street. You can call them at 875-1511. Feel free to also go to their website, to Asha, and that's spelled ASHA, FamilyServices.org. You can get more information about Miss Antonia Druvan and the services that they offer there. There's also a PayPal link on the homepage in the bottom right corner. Feel free to leave a monetary donation. Every little bit helps, even if it's just $5, $10. Don't ever think that your donation is too small. It's definitely welcomed, and yes, it goes a long way. And remember, if you are in a domestic violence relationship, or even if you're not sure, 9 times out of 10, your instinct is right. Make sure you call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE, SAFE.